a Rebel for Peace is, and in that model on what we're offering to ourselves and what we're working towards every day to be able to be the change that we want to see. So a rebel is challenging the status quo. A rebel is challenging things that are normal. Like specifically for us, we challenging the violence, we challenging the disconnect, and we're challenging the fact that underserved neighborhoods can't have access to high quality programming, which is normal in other areas or normal in certain situations. So we're challenging that because why can't our students have a social and emotional learning program that's tailor-made for them? Why can't our students not be violent? Why can't our students see a different way to think or live or carry themselves? We challenging the status quo on what people are creating for our lives and just making sure that we're doing what's impactful to us. We're doing what is beneficial for our future in every way possible. So you challenge the status quo. You have to challenge things that are the normal things that aren't beneficial to all. We challenging those. You raise the standards of what's normal. Specifically, like I was speaking on in the end, a lot of these things are becoming normal in our neighborhoods. Violence is normal to a lot of our students. Arguing is normal to a lot of our students. Not knowing what you're doing after high school is normal for a lot of our students. We trying to raise those standards of what's normal for our community, for our neighborhood, and for our students by allowing them to have access to a different conversation, to a different way of expressing themselves, and to have a safe space for that that's happening consistently every week for 25 weeks when we are there. And you create peace where others create conflict, like what we doing. We Rebels for Peace, we in Chicago. I mean, everybody knows what come to mind when they think about Chicago. You either thinking about downtown and good food, or you thinking about, where we at and what we dealing with. So we are creating peace in a situation that is considered violent, that's considered dangerous, that's considered somewhere that you might not want to go to. We're creating that peace there because no one else is. I'm not going to say no one else is. I'm going to say we're creating that peace there because that's what we want to see. We being the change that we want to see. So we creating peace everywhere that we go. We creating a safe space everywhere that we go, even in dangerous neighborhoods, even in violent, even in uncommunicative spaces. We are still going and creating that peace where there may not be any. And then we're moving on to you have an unwavering commitment to unity. And that's the biggest thing, which is a lot of times there's a lot of separation due to where you come from, due to what you have access to, due to how you may carry yourself or how you grew up. And Rebel for Peace is all about bringing everybody together to show them how, no matter how different we are, there are always so many things that we have in common. We are all human. We all are breathing air. We all want best for ourselves and our family. And we just always are trying to find a way to connect people with each other, connect each other together whenever there is room where to be separation. We just want to make sure that, people understand that there's always a way for us to connect. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what you went through, no matter where you grew up, you can always connect to another person or another community. And then you celebrate uniqueness and diversity. So just as much as we are allowing people to be themselves and accepting that, we are also allowing people to celebrate the uniqueness that they bring from their experience. We're allowing people to understand that it's okay to be different. It's okay to rebel against violence. It's okay to rebel against what's going on in your household or in your neighborhood if it's not beneficial for your success or others around you. It's okay to be different. It's okay to not be involved in the norm. And that's what we celebrate. We celebrating our rebels. We celebrating all of our students who are rebelling against the violence every day, who are rebelling against unfortunate circumstances that a lot of others may not understand. We celebrating them for being who they are, for being resilient, and most importantly, we creating that space. Like, we celebrate the fact that we're different. We rebels for peace. We rebelling against violence in a place where a lot of others are involved in it, and it's a normal. So we celebrate ourselves for being the change that we want to see, for not being involved in the things that are negatively affecting our community. And then we want to also do that same thing for the students. Who's celebrating the students who are taking the right path instead of left? Who's celebrating the students who are rebelling against the negative things that could affect them for being where they want to be? The Rebels for Peace we celebrate the uniqueness and the diversity of all, and especially our children in the community. Most importantly, you care about your health, well-being, and sanity. That's what I've been trying to work on a lot, because my well-being have been affected by 600 students not having access to high-quality programming that's tailor-made for them and their circumstances. My sanity is affected because it's hard for me to think about anything else other than my students that I know that need us, that need Rebel for Peace, that need a safe space, that need somebody to talk to about what they're going through at home or in their neighborhoods, that need somebody to motivate them, that they can do the things that their mind might be telling them that they can't. And, you know, just that whole thing around, I can't take care of anyone else until I take care of myself. So before I could be a Rebel for Peace, I had to be the change that I want to see. And then I was able to step into, you know, doing that for someone else in my community. So you have to care about your health, well-being, and sanity to be able to help anybody else. So that's what I'm going through now is, you know, just dealing with that and making sure that I'm still loving on myself. I'm still giving myself a lot of, you know, credit and just being okay. But it's just really hard. So this is, you know, a tough one for me right now, is just because I care so much about the community. I care so much about my team, who is passionate about providing the services to the youth. I care so much about the community and the school culture that we have enhanced for the last 5 years, to where now it's a gap in the space and time with us not being there, to where old habits and old conversations can start happening again, because we're not there to direct and reinforce the youth to a better path. So, you know, my well-being and sanity is in the program. So that's one big thing that I realize, is that the more that I take care of myself, the more impact I'm able to make for the community, and the more I'm able to love and be present for my team. That is just a briefing of what it looks like. What a Rebel for Peace? What is a Rebel for Peace? Rebel for Peace is always striving to be the change that they want to see, and reminding everyone that you don't have to be a product of your environment, but you can allow your environment to be a product of you. Thank you so much for everybody that have believed in Rebels for Peace up until this point. Thank you for all our supporters, and just being aware, being here, taking this time out on a Thursday and giving us y'all energy. We appreciate y'all. Rebels for Peace will not stop until our youth are where they need to be. So thank you all.
If you could change one thing in your community, what would you change, and why?
I would change negative people.
What would you say to those negative people?
I would say don't hurt other people's feelings, because you don't want them to hurt your feelings.
The kindness in my community.
If there was one thing that you could change in your community, what would you change?
Kids killing each other.
Okay, what would you tell them?
You don't gotta be that serious. Just talk it out.
You don't know how that person might act. Treat people how you want to be treated. Like talking to the kids, like pulling them out, seeing what problems they going through and stuff, and try to talk to them.
Rebel for Peace can help you control your feelings and your anger.
Ooh, I love that. How has Rebels for Peace helped you?
It made me control my anger issues.
I have people I could just count on. When I got my certificate,
Ooh, how did that feel for you?
it felt like I achieved something in my life.
Okay. I like that. If you could describe the Rebels for Peace program, what would you describe it as, using 3 words?
Good, fun, and helpful.
Okay. Do you think more schools should have Rebels for Peace?
Yes.
First of all, I want to say all of our kids are rock stars and superstars. They're so full of energy and leadership and resilience.
Yeah.
And the work we do is incredible, but it's nothing without them. Like, that's the purpose. That's why we're motivated. That's why we come in every day to do what we do. I'm sorry, I'm such a crybaby.
I know. Me too.
But we're good. But oh my gosh. Okay, sorry.
Well, so you were and I was with you when we were interviewing the kids. That was the end of year celebration we had at the end of their school year in May or early June.
Yeah, May to early June.
So we did that with almost 600 kids, and it was so cool to hear them talk about what they got from the Rebels for Peace program. And you just heard just a few of them, a couple snippets, but I wanted to rewind the tape a little bit. And it feels like you've been with us forever, but it's only been, that was your first school year.
That was my first school year.
My
first event.
Your first celebration. And so you had been an intern with us the summer before that.
Yes.
So again, I feel like Melina's been a part of my family for 3,000 years, but it's really only been about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Not even. So.
And it's been a life-changing year and a half.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
And you're so real with the kids, and you're so passionate. And I know that comes from what you saw for yourself when you did the Rebels for Peace summer internship, and then you got trained in how to deliver and facilitate and mentor for the kids. So I want to rewind the tape all the way back to when you were an intern. What did you see for yourself that woke something up in you and made you say, oh my gosh, I want to pay this forward to other kids? What were the kind of, I don't know, 2, 3, or 4 things that were really changing for you, life-changing for you, but also in the spirit of Rebel, it was kind of like turn things on its head in a way?
I say the main thing that I first got when I went to Rebels was that we were speaking to the potential of who I wanted to be and who I needed to be for myself, but also who I wanted to be for those around me, for my family, for my younger siblings, and for my community. When you don't have someone that's there advocating for you, you start to wonder if anyone cares. And I always had the mentality, if no one cares, I'm gonna care. So when we started speaking on being that change and being that person that we needed and that's needed in our communities, that's when I was like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. These are people who are gonna care when no one else cares. And these are people who are gonna show up when no one else shows up. I'm sorry, can I get some napkins? I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about what I'm saying because it's life-changing. But yeah, I've been in many rooms when we're talking about everything that's wrong in our communities, everything we don't have access to, everything we've been through, generational traumas and depression and anxiety and poverty and all these different mindsets that we're so used to being in, on all these boxes that we're told that we're in, and no one's telling us who we need to be to come outside of those boxes. And I think that's what the internship did for me. It told me who I could be and who I already was outside of those boxes. And that was empowering. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm such a crybaby. But yeah.
No, but I think it's, when I listen to you, I just feel such a overwhelming sense of compassion for, and we have a lot of foreigners on today. So when we do virtual events, we do events here in Chicago, and what Melina's talking about is probably pretty familiar to people in Chicago, but just to kind of fill you in if you don't necessarily understand, it's like in the communities that we serve and that you understand intimately because you've lived in them, there's an enormous amount of stress, and people are just trying to make ends meet. And so a lot of parents are not in the household because they're working, or they're working
We're in a
multiple jobs.
survival.
And there's a survival mode feeling.
Yeah.
And that's why I say so much compassion is because it's no one's fault. No one's not being there for young people on purpose. It's just there's a need to survive. There's a lot of people who are working. There's also people who are just they're underneath their own stress, and they weren't given these resources.
And they're trying their best with what they have.
And they're trying their best. So we talk a lot about not just breaking the cycles of violence, but breaking the cycles of just anger, frustration
and hurt.
People
and
are
pain.
taking out on each other in the home. And so when we talk about rebelling against what's become so normal, like what Melina's pointing to is like, it's what's so normal for these kids is to just be around stress and frustration and anger. That's like what they're hearing and what they're getting from so many people.
And
in
that's
their
what's normal to us, to them. That's what's been normalized. That if we're angry, it's okay. Then it's just angry, frustration, and hurt. And we're feeling these, but we also don't see a way to be productive in this, to be more than just this. What for me was so confusing. What more is there to just being hurt and being in this pain and being in the survival mode, because that's what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm seeing. And wanting more than that, and just also wanting to see people in that, being more, who are living that, who are being that, who are true to that, and who are true to themselves in the process of that. Yeah. And that's something that I want for our kids, that I want for our youth, and that I honestly want for everyone. Like, who doesn't want that well-being for themselves, and not having to be stressed and angry and hurt. Mm-hmm. It feels like 24/7. It feels like a loop. Yes. So just trying to break out that loop and trying to break out that box.
And I love like what was so important to us when essentially kind of creating the Rebels for Peace initially with Dejan and Prince, and then adding, Melina and Devlin and Logan, and it's that everyone here has lived what a lot of these kids have lived. So you're not speaking as some distant pie in the sky, rose-colored glasses. We'll just want to speak to everything's going to be fine. We're going to speak to the potential in you, and then everything in your life is going to get glorious. It's like, so could you say a little bit about when you were in the internship and you began to feel these things like, oh my gosh, I'm in a space where I'm not just these boxes. I feel this potential in me. I feel this potential for my life to be something more than what I've seen growing up. Nothing in your environment actually changed, right? Yeah. You still have all the same challenges. Your family has the same challenges. Your neighborhood, your community has the same challenges, but something changed in you. Yes. So can you speak to how, and I think that's why it's so important that is also why you're showing up and being the ones sharing that with these kids. It's like, look, no one came in and, I didn't win the lottery. No one gave me a fancier house, a nicer parent, a blah, blah, blah. Like all my shit stayed the same. Yeah. But I'm different. So what, for you, how did you genuinely feel that shift on the inside so that you could talk to kids about it in a way that was real, not just, like I said, some like rose-colored glasses, wouldn't it be nice kind of thing?
Yeah, real quick, I do want to also touch on, I think it's so important that we're coming from the same communities that we're going back into, because we can genuinely speak on what they're going through. And yeah, there's situations that we might not have went through personally, but there's situations that we can be like, I've been in the same position that you're in, and I've seen the other side, and it's gonna be okay. And that comfort means a whole lot to a lot of kids, because I know personally when I was in those same positions, I didn't see the other side. I didn't see the end of the tunnel. I didn't see that light. Like it was so hard to stay focused on my goals when I felt so indulged in everything around me. But I also saw somebody say seeing is believing, and being in a room full of people who can see the potential within you and don't just see your problems felt relieving. I felt like I was just a problem child, or I was depressed, or I was anxious, or I had anger issues. And I'm just like, I'm none of those things. Yeah. Girl, I'm gonna stop crying. I'm sorry. But yeah, Can you repeat your question, love? I'm so sorry.
No, you're answering it, but it's just that nothing in your outside world changed, but you somehow internally got it.
Yeah.
You got that not only you have this resilience, but you are not these boxes, and this doesn't determine your capacity for mental health. It doesn't determine what's possible for you in your future. Like, I think it's so interesting to be able to speak to that from a truly internal place in the same circumstances.
Yeah, I'd say my mind shift. My mindset just just shifted. Something in my mind was like, oh, just because I've been told this is who I am, I get to choose now if I let those things define me or if I define myself. And that mind shift focus changed everything. I am who I choose to be. I am who I want to be. Even in the face of adversity, even in the face of people telling me who I have to be or who I am, I can either choose to be who other people would label me as, or I can choose to be who I want to be in the face of my problems or in the face of my environment or in the face of whatever I'm in. I am who I choose to be.
Yeah. Wow. That's rebellious.
Yeah.
That's the spirit of a rebel. I give you this.
Thank you, Manny. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You got the support team over here.
Yeah. And I have such lovely support. So, yeah, I feel confident going into the schools. Not because I'm in it. I'm not going in by myself ever. I'm going surrounded by the same people that are continuously helping me and who are also helping themselves and wanting more for themselves and are breaking out of those boxes themselves. Yeah. So, yeah, we're surrounded by amazing people, amazing supporters, and I think it really trickles down to the kids, like the environment for the kiddos. They make it a lot, but I think the people we bring in and we allow to embrace them and embrace who they are and not what they're going through, it means a lot to them. And I see it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I wish I wasn't a crybaby, but it is what it is.
No, but I think it's because it's so authentic for you.
It
like
is.
Nothing that you're talking about is theoretical. It's all experiential. You know this. You know it in your bones because you've experienced it.
I've seen it. I've experienced
and
it.
you see how it changes things for the young kids. It changes to have someone who's just a little bit older than them, that they look up to, that they relate to, that they think is fun and cool. Like, my favorite thing is, like, you guys are making resilience and mental health cool, you're making peace cool, and you're making the fact, not the idea, the fact that they can be anything, do anything, regardless of the circumstances they were born into. You're making that real to them.
Yeah, and them knowing that there's a support system behind that.
Yes.
That is, yeah, you can do it on your own because we believe in you and you have that capability. It's not something that anyone else is going to bring to the table for you. It's something that you already have. But even on those days you feel like, I don't know how to unlock it, I don't know how to unleash my own inner power, there's people around you that see it in you. And I saw somebody say seeing is believing, and even just seeing that potential within them, if they can acknowledge that someone else sees what's truly within themselves, they'll start to believe it and they'll start to know it themselves as well. And I think that's our goal, is for these children to know and believe truly in the potential they have in themselves and who they choose to be and what they want to do. We don't go in talking about everything that's wrong in the world. We talk about everything that's right within themselves and how that can make things right within the world. So that's being the change we want to see, and that's changing our environment progressively.
Listening to you, I'm just thinking as a parent, and I know Jenny said on here she's just looking for how to help her daughter, and you know, we're going to get into later, like, what are some of the lessons that they teach and to the kids. So, like, you do go in and teach a class. The Rebels for Peace, for those who don't know, the Rebels for Peace goes in and works with 4th through 8th grade students in Chicago public schools, and they teach an hour-long class during the school day. So you have content, you have a lesson plan, you have a curriculum and things that you're teaching them. But what I'm picking up on in hearing you, and it's really, really hitting me as a mother, is it's not what you teach them as much as what you believe about them.
Yes.
That they're picking up on. And I really feel it. And when you're talking, it's like, before you even open your mouth or get out, the supply, like we have all the supply, like all the different exercises and games and fun, like craft things that you do with them, make it engaging, and it helps them learn something really powerful about their mind and about that freedom that you're talking about. But before any of that even happens, it's like, I feel like it's just oozing out of you that you see them differently.
Yes.
You see and believe in them in a way that isn't the norm. And it's rebellious to know that that's a fact about every single child.
Yeah.
That there is no kid, regardless of how bad their behavior's been,
Oh my gosh.
how angry, depressed, troublemaker, violent, whatever, that in spite of all of that, that's just the noise and the lack of understanding
in their own mind.
Yeah. Has taken them one way, and you're like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm going to show you this.
Right.
Come with
I'm
me
gonna take
because
all
I
of this.
see you.
We're gonna take all of this, and we're gonna see what's really everything under the noise in your head. We're gonna see what's really there. And a lot of these kids that have so much energy and they're so rebellious, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna be such a great leader. If you put all this energy and all this potential in another avenue, how successful you'll be. Like, are you serious? Are you so serious? Like, oh my gosh. And I remember I had a mentor tell me that too. Like, man, you're doing so much. You're doing so much. He would say random. I know what he meant. You're doing so much random stuff. But if you put all that same energy and potential into doing the right thing, you'd be unstoppable. And I believe the same thing in them. Like, these are leaders. Nonetheless, if they're rebelling in the classroom, they can rebel against so much other negativity. And I'm just like, all right, so let's channel this. Let's channel this in the right direction. Because you got it. You have it. Yeah. It's just channeling it somewhere else. Yeah. And we can help you with that. We can help. We can open them doors for you. We got this. So it's just, I love seeing that in a kid. We're also in classrooms where they're like, oh, they're so disruptive in class, they're such troublemakers, and I'm like, yo, if you're saying this in front of the kid, they're gonna believe that. And so when we get the kids, we're not talking to, oh, you're such a troublemaker, you're such a bad kid. It's just like, I see your energy, come and help me in the classroom. Come and help me lead this activity. What do you think about this? Because they want to talk, they have a voice, they have something they want to say, they want to get that energy out. So just giving them that space to get that energy out and into something positive, not only for themselves, but for their classmates, I think is so important. And that they're seeing that for themselves, like, oh, I can lead a class. I can lead an activity. Oh, okay. There's other things I could be doing with the same energy, the same potential. If I can get the class to cause a ruckus, I could get the class to listen to a lesson. And that's what makes me happy. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But yeah.
There's two things that I wanted to ask you more about. One, I'll come back to the initial one I had, because I think, you guys have been going back to the school. So the little bit of fundraising we've been able to do, we are back with a couple hundred students, not the full 600, but a couple hundred. So you guys are going into the schools. But you said it's been interesting to you. You were expecting the kids to come up to you and say, hey, when are you coming back to art class? Because the kids love you. But the teachers have been coming up to you saying, when are you coming back into art class? And say a little bit about that, why you think the teachers love you guys so much.
I think it's so funny. Okay, first of all, we have kids asking us nonstop, when are you coming back? When's our class? What time does it start? And we're like, yo, give us some time. We're on our way. But I think one of our, can I name our schools? Yeah, right?
I think so. That's okay, right?
Yeah. Okay, awesome. When we go to schools, we have supply bins full of the supplies for the activities. And so when we're bringing them into schools, we get tackled with love by the kiddos. Like, when are you coming back? You're here? You're ready? I'm like, yo, we're on our way. And then we also have teachers like, oh, is class starting? Oh, okay. When are we starting? And we're like, yo, it's not time yet, but we are coming back. We have teachers like, oh, when are you coming back? We've been asking, we've been waiting. One of our teachers at Thorpe was like, oh, I was ready for you guys to come back. I was asking the principal when you were coming back, and even like talking to the principals and asking for permission to put stuff in their school. They're like, oh, so when are you guys starting? When are you guys coming in? And we're like, we're coming in. And we did start 2 schools. We started 2 schools this week, and it's been such a fun time already. We have so much love from the teachers and the staff and the community, so it's just, it feels like home. It feels like an extension of our family, so, yeah.
Well, and I know from, you'll see a clip later, but you know, a lot of the principals and teachers comment that the behavior of the students really changes when they have the Rebels for Peace in their week, because they're learning about their mind and their emotions and how to respond differently, and not just keep choosing the same behaviors and not just keep being that same disruptive kid, because you're seeing something different in them. And then you're showing them, like you said, how to channel that energy.
Right. And they want more of that.
And they do.
They want more of that. I feel like they see the reward and they want more of it.
Yeah.
And these are kids that see reaction and want more of it. So if they see reward in what they're doing, they want more of it. And it really plays itself out, like, oh, I can be more, and I can be doing more. And I just want more of that. I feel like when people do something right and you do something really well, you just want more of that feeling.
It feels good.
It feels so good. You're like, oh, how can I do? And I feel like that with Rebels too. When I got here and I was like, oh, I really like how I'm feeling in this internship. How can I get more of that?
Yeah.
And then you guys offer me a job. I'm like, oh, okay. But no, yeah, I'm like, how can I get more of this? And how can I, and this really gave me the opportunity to be who I needed to be when I was younger, who I wanted someone to be for me. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So the other thing I think we're kind of rebelling against with Rebels for Peace, and I'm gonna kind of like talk about it as we talk about it now, but I feel like it's really different with Rebels for Peace. It's like we're making a conversation around mental health normal, and you know, it's not common, especially in a lot of the communities we're in, for that to be an okay conversation to have, even in 2024. Like, there's certain schools that have really embraced that, but like there's still a huge lack of understanding and really comfort with talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm going to say, I feel like we don't go in and say, we're going to talk to you about your mental health. Because there's immediately this feeling of, to what you were talking about earlier, of like kind of a lack or a dysfunction. It's like mental health has this stigma. It's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I have to go to a therapist or a counselor. And I know there's still like a lot of pressures in all different communities to toughen up, you know, be a man,
suck it up,
don't
cry, don't be emotional.
To church. Like, there's not an open conversation. Now, what I love about Rebels for Peace is we're not even coming in saying we're going to talk to you about your mental health. We're just, I don't know what I was going to start to say to my words, but like, what do you say? Like, what when you're talking to the kids, like, how do you word it? Because they're all ears, they're all for it, they're comfortable with it. There's no weirdness around it.
I think, unfortunately, mental health has such a scary stigma around it. And like you said, when we think about mental health, we think about what's wrong with me. Like, oh, if I have to talk about this, there has to be something wrong, because we think no one has to talk about these things. And no, these are things that need to be talked about, that we're people, we have to vent, we have to show and express our feelings in some shape, way, or form. And I think what we're doing, instead of saying, oh, this is what's wrong with you, these are ways that you can help yourself with that you can help others with that as well, that you can give yourself grace, that you can give yourself the time and opportunity to heal that within yourself. And once you start seeing that within yourself, because you have to see it for yourself first, you can start helping others around you too. And I know we're working with kids, but I know when I personally went through this and I started healing myself, my family started to say, there's something different about you. You have a glow to you. And little did they know, I'm still talking about and I'm still working with my mental health, but just at a different approach. And so just approaching that with more of a, we're going to take all that noise out of our head, and we're going to cover what being grounded and with yourself means, and what it looks like, and how that feels. And once you have that feeling, that's all you strive for, honestly. So you don't want that noise to come back. And when you do have that noise back in your mind, you you find a way to release it in a positive way, in a productive way. Yeah.
I love how you put that. It's like everyone can relate to that there's noise, and then it feels better to know how to release it. And that's not like a certain people conversation.
Yeah,
that's just
everybody.
Human. This is
yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
And everybody has noise in their head at some point. We all go through something. So we're not saying, oh, you're never going to go through anything ever again in your life. You're never going to face problems again. There's never going to be adversity again. But knowing that there's a level ground and a oneness within yourself that you can tap into in that face of that noise, whatever is going through, there's a calmness within yourself that can be unlocked, that's there for you, and that no one can take away from you. No one can touch that. That's for you. That's yours. In the face of whatever, like I promise you, I go through stuff and I'm like, I get so angry, I get frustrated, and I'm just like, okay, but this is gonna pass as well, and this is not gonna stay here forever. So let's start calming down and let's start looking for solutions instead of indulging in this pain or grief. Yeah, I think that approach is way better than telling, well, you just gotta be okay. No, it's okay to not be okay, but we're always gonna be able to come back to that level.
Knowing that there's something
Knowing that there is,
to come back to.
And just tapping into it.
Yeah. And really reversing that script. Again, rebelling against what many of us were taught growing up, which is that, oh, we get affected by the negativity. We get sucked into it. We get poisoned by it in a way that like, oh, I'm in this toxic environment, so toxic me.
It has to be me, right? I have to be toxic. If everybody around me is angry, I have to be angry too. If everybody around me is mad, I have to be mad too, because that's just what it is. You feel like you have to be that. Yeah. And if you don't like that feeling, you don't have to be that.
Yeah.
You could be the voice of reason. Yeah. And that's so crazy to say, like, you can be the voice of reason even when you feel like the things around you aren't reasonable or rational. Yeah.
Well, and that kid, oh my gosh, that one kid who's like, Rebels for Peace helped me with my anger issues. And like, he's so cute and little.
Oh my gosh.
And sweet. And just, you could see like the joy on his face. Like, oh, I don't have to have
you know
these
what's
anger
crazy?
issues.
He was one of the most like eager to participate in the class. So I love seeing him, and he was so funny in class. He was a little jokester, but he was so eager to participate in every lesson, and it's just like, wow. And he would help those around him. So him saying my anger is just, I'm like, man, but you're the funniest person I know. Like, you bring the energy levels up in here like by 10,000. So I'm just like, it was great to see him. Of course, everyone has their moments, but it's just like, dude, you're so much more than that. Like, you're a leader, natural born leader. And I love seeing that in him. And I love seeing our kids do our interviews. I feel like I haven't seen them, but I see them every time we go to the schools and the hallways, and there's just so much love. So I have so much love for them. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Melina, I could listen to you talk all day. Is there anything, any kind of last thing you want to share that has been for you, your journey of becoming a rebel for yourself and then teaching kids how to be a rebel? Is there anything else that's important for you to let people know?
You are who you choose to be. In the face of everything, you are who you choose to be. Either you choose who you are or the people around you will. But at the end of the day, you choose who you want to be and what you do. Yeah, I think that's it. Again, thank you guys so much. Like, I'm able to sit here and talk to you about everything that we're doing, but it doesn't come without support, and it doesn't come without a community. It takes a village, and I think we have built such a beautiful community and village. Yeah. And thank you. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes an even bigger village to raise a whole community back up. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Fucking rock star.
You have time for something that's important. You have time for anything that's going to impact the learning of students. Kids have to feel emotionally safe to be able to learn. So social emotional learning is the foundation for learning. I have to come in and I'm emotionally focused. People really receive the Rebels for Peace and the program.
And what they've really done is shatter the images of what a positive black person, a positive brown-skinned person can look like. Once they came in and started supporting kids and getting them to understand the role that they play and understanding more about how to interact with their peers, it's been a big change. You can see them telling, hey man, don't do that. You know, we're not supposed to do that. Or, Mr. King, don't worry, let me talk to him about that.
Seeing somebody who they feel like is young enough to be relatable to them come in and give them a message, same message that we're selling, but they receive it differently from that person. And being able to see people who look like them and who are younger, who genuinely care. They've been with us for years now, and our kids are always looking forward to them coming back. So I'm so happy that we said yes, right? And to hear that they have goals, Nobel Peace Prizes, they want community centers. So if we continue to say no and don't open those doors and don't support their visions and their growth, then who will?
I'm so glad to be here with you all. I'm Logan. I am one of the lead facilitators here with Rebels for Peace, and I have...
I'm Devlin, a new facilitator brought on from the internship.
And kind of like they kind of talked about not too long ago, we are in the schools. We help 4th through 8th graders. Right now, we're actually serving mostly 4th and 5th grade. We go into classes during the school day for at least an hour, and we teach a lovely Spark curriculum, which we're going to kind of get into with you guys and kind of show you a little bit more about what we do and how we do it with the kiddos, with the activities in this lovely curriculum. So yeah. First things first, have to shout out our Spark family before we go any further. Just want to shout out Spark. Love you guys all the way from Chicago to Florida. Want to let you guys know we appreciate you all for our curriculum and your guys' support in this entire thing. And going into Spark, we teach a curriculum that is one of one, and that is the Spark curriculum. You want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so we go into the Spark curriculum into the schools. We basically go over these lessons one by one, teaching these kids that how they feel does matter. You know, a lot of times in these communities, you know, it's a common stigma that, you know, there's sayings like, stop crying before I give you a reason to cry, or other things brought on with the families of the parents, or other outside sources. So it's a very common thing that mental health will be a less dwelled upon thing, especially in the schools, especially in the households and stuff like that. I, for one, was victim of that. So it was very hard even teaching myself some of this curriculum. Like, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't what I know. So throughout the internship, it was very different, very interesting learning some of these lessons, like the thought chain and the thought cycle, which we'll get more into in a second. But basically reaffirming and teaching these kids that how you feel does matter. Let's show you how to identify how you feel and how to deal with it. So we have 2 lessons. We have one lesson in particular, thought chain versus thought cycle. Would you like to go more into that?
Yes, and before the thought chain and thought cycle, when we talk about Spark, we introduce the lovely concept of the spark itself, which is what all of our curriculum is based around. The spark being your instinct, your creative instinct, your energy around life, that joy that you always have inside of you, that one thing that you hold on to, that you keep inside of you, that you protect. A lot of kids say that it lives in your heart rather than in your mind. And I think a lot of people should actually think about that in today's world, living in your heart instead of in your mind. So yeah, we're gonna kind of introduce to you guys what the Spark is. We're gonna talk about some activities that we do with the kiddos and kind of walk you through them and how we walk through them with them. And then we'll kind of get into some personal examples and some experience with each other about how we're going into the schools and what that's looking like and how the kiddos are taking that back and those different experiences with these different kiddos in these different environments. So yeah, let's get into the thought chain first. Well, the thought cycle, the thought cycle. All right, talking about the lovely thought cycle, we talk about a feeling, a behavior, and a result. In this cycle, you see there's a feeling, and after that feeling obviously comes a behavior, and with that behavior comes a result. But you're not seeing any stopping, you're not seeing any breaking, it's just a constant cycle. Nothing is being acknowledged, you just see a feeling coming from somewhere, but we know that behavior is coming from that feeling, And with that behavior, you're getting that result. But we see that that result is not such a good result. But that same cycle with that same feeling and that same behavior is repeating. And we tend to see this a lot in our classrooms. Same feelings with not having any idea where they come from. And that's kind of what we're kind of breaking. A lot of thoughts, they get scary when you don't know where they come from. But we'll get into that. When we talk about the thought cycle, you talk about how you go into this circle and it's nonstop, but then we're gonna go into the thought chain, which kind of breaks it down a little bit more. When we talk about the thought chain, going to the thought cycle, you introduce the idea of actual thought and understanding that a feeling comes from a thought. Everything starts with just a simple thought. And if you can understand that all these things that you're feeling come from the simple things that you're thinking and feeling in your brain and that you're thinking, well, could you imagine the power that you hold if you just changed that thinking and that thought or picked simply just a different thought? In a chain, you usually think that it's not broken, but actually in this lesson, this is where we teach where to break the chain. And I'll let Dev kind of get a little bit more into that.
Yeah, so you can't really help thoughts and you can't really help feelings. Those two things are very set in stone. So we try our best to, while teaching the lesson, we teach them that you can't help your thoughts, you can't help your feelings, but what you can change is the behavior. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you have to show that you're angry in your behavior. There's other ways to go about that emotion, like being sad. There's other ways to go about being happy. There's other ways to go about being mad. There's different ways to go about everything to make sure that you don't result with a bad result. So, you know, there's many times where, you know, in the classroom, somebody will yell at another kid. One of the kids will yell at another kid. Instantly, that kid gets upset reasonably and then feels that, okay, I'm upset. Now I have to show that I'm upset in the way that all I know how to do, which is either yell back or even sometimes hit. And that's where we want to change, because even just hitting somebody because you're upset, just because you're upset does not justify you hitting somebody. So that means we need to break the thought chain where we can, which is the behavior. So instead of hitting somebody, you say, hey, I didn't like that, or in a different way, like if that person's not being reasonable, just walk away, take the calm route, and then that results in a better result. So trying to teach that, you know, as these thoughts and feelings go on with life, it's always possible to change the result by changing that behavior.
100%. And also just understanding that there's some parts in our life, obviously, that we understand are just completely out of our control. And that's okay. Like, it's out of our control, okay. And that's where we feel like the thought and the feeling aspect comes in. Just understanding that every thought is going to come with the feeling if you give it that. If you give it that. And once you give it that and you have that feeling and that thought, that's a given, that's connected, that's a chain, that's a part of the chain that cannot be broken. So instead of focusing so much energy on that part of breaking it where you know it really can't be broken, we focus more on the part that you can. Okay, if I'm happy and I know that I want to reflect that maybe in my behavior, or even just with being angry. We look at it from being happy thoughts, or even just with negative thoughts, but also controlling these thoughts in different environments can look so much different behavioral-wise. I can be angry and I can be able to control that way better when I'm at home and be able to break that chain way better when I'm at home versus when I'm at school and in a whole different environment with a little bit more animosity and a little bit more pressure. And just being able to understand that you still have that power in your mind, nowhere else, that you can break that chain. And that's when we really start digging a little bit deeper into our thoughts coming from a feeling and that breaking that chain to that behavior. Okay? All right, so with this lovely activity, we honestly get a lot of given when we talk about what are you feeling in your thoughts and your behaviors. Obviously, when you're angry, kiddos want to talk about, oh, I want to fight, or I'm going to fight. And like Dev said, just because you're angry, a lot of this thought chain and thought cycle and breaking that chain is really about them understanding that your behavior does not have to justify your feelings. Okay, like just because you're angry does not mean that you have to go and slam walls and punch everybody. We can be angry and break that chain and simply just be calm and be cool and collected and go about it a completely different way. And kind of just having the courage and being and rebelling against that. So yeah. And I think that when we talk about violence prevention, which I'm gonna kind of let Deb get into, the thought chain and the thought cycle is something that we use heavy and constantly throughout our curriculum with the kiddos to constantly remind them of the power that they have within their thoughts alone. And once you have that power, what that power comes with, and how much you can do with that, and how unstoppable that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so in today's world, especially in this community, Chicago, the communities that we go into, the neighboring communities, it's a common thing now of the violence. That, like Prince said earlier today, it's very, when you think of Chicago, when a lot of people think of Chicago, they think about violence and they think about the food. But very often, then sometimes it's always the violence. And you know, this is a topic that's very close to me. I've seen it. I've been on both sides. As a kid, I used to be a fighter. If somebody says something to me, came at me sideways, I was ready. Something that got me in trouble a lot of times, something that I could have changed if I knew something like this. And then there's more serious examples. I know a lot of people very close to me who passed away because they felt like they had to do something, because they had to do something more than fight. They had to, so it was very difficult growing up with all this stuff around me in the area I was in. I lost friends. I know a lot of people, friends and family, who lost their friends and family. It's kind of ironic. I actually have a hat of a friend. He makes clothes here in the city, and this hat actually represents for the friends that passed away to gun violence that he had. And instead of channeling that frustration, instead of channeling that energy into a weapon or a gun, he channeled it in his clothes. There's better ways to deal with these emotions than what we know. There's better ways to vent out that frustration. There's better ways to really tell the world, hey, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, without having to bring in the violence. We don't have to keep hurting each other. We don't have to keep hurting each other just because we are hurt. It's a common saying that hurt people hurt people. That is extremely true, especially in our area. I know people now who are still fighting with those feelings, that feel like they have to get active on the street just because they lost their friend, they lost their brother. So it is something that is almost an epidemic, and it's just getting worse by the day. The violence in Chicago now is almost laughed upon. I'm not going there. I might have to dodge bullets when I'm driving down the street. It's not like that. People make a joke out of it instead of focus on the real issues and try to help it. And, that's what we are doing. That's what Rebels for Peace are doing. We are being that change in our neighborhood that we need. We are going into these schools and teaching these kids, you don't have to grow up like that. You don't have to grow up paranoid to walk down the street just because somebody else is angry. You don't have to be the person in the street angry, holding that gun because you're upset. There's better ways to release that energy, to release that frustration. And that's what we're trying to show.
100%. Yeah, and definitely just literally, everything you just said is literally a constant cycle that being into like a constant cycle, at one point we just say no more.
Exactly.
We just say no more. Like, I'm breaking it. I don't want to be in that cycle no more. I want different. So when do you go? If you want different, when do we do different?
Exactly.
When do we add? When do we do more? When do we want more? If you want more, when do you do more? If you want different, we got to do different. And I feel like this is where Spark is so different. Like, it introduces your spark, and it introduces something that you have in you that nobody in this world can take from you, regardless of what circumstance, no matter what environment, no matter where you are in your life. It's in you, and you cannot, and nobody else can take that from you. Somebody earlier said it's a lot of noise in the world right now, and all that noise, in the middle of all that noise, is your spark. And regardless if you choose to listen to that or not, it's always going to be there. And at some point in your life, you will feel and land upon and trust upon that spark. And it will be there, good days and bad days. I feel like our kids are always told what they can get taken from them and what's not theirs. So introducing spark to them and letting them know that this is something that can be taken from them, regardless of wherever you go, good or bad, whatever mistake you make, whatever right you do, whatever wrong you do, it's there. And it will lead you, no matter if you have a role model, no matter where you are. So that is Spark. That is our curriculum. That is our core. And then we go into this cycle that we talk about. And we're going to kind of get a little bit more into this cycle and into this chain, because this comes with our personal experiences as humans, being in our society, being in where we are in Chicago, and reflecting this on our kiddos. And just kind of letting them know and try to preparing them, but listening to our own spark as facilitators and as humans to try to create the path, let them create their path and lead them down that path, and how easy it can be sometimes to try to create that path for them because we think we know what's right. But in all of that midst and learning about your spark, you learn that it's really about them listening to theirs as well. And in the midst of you learning, you know that you're following your journey. So your job is to let them follow theirs. The experience, the relationship with the kiddos. We talk about going in. Mel kind of talked about it a little earlier. We come in, kiddos are hugging and screaming and wanting to see us, and oh, where you guys been at, and when you guys coming back? It's insane. The love is insane. It's like a never-ending feeling of love, and it's always like that home feeling. But then also just kind of to take all that in that we learn out here and trying to reuse that in our leadership as well, not only with our kiddos, but just also with our team and in our communities and our events, and just trying to give back into our communities as well. So, yeah, all right, so we are going to kind of hit on another little lesson that we do with our kiddos, which is leading into, after the thought chain and thought cycle, you kind of go into the thought highway. And on this lovely thought highway, it looks kind of just like it would look for when we are on an actual highway. Maybe just a little bit different because I see some feelings and behavior. But as we saw on the cycle, every chain starts. You start with the thought, and after that thought, you have a feeling, and after that feeling comes a behavior, and with that behavior is a result. In this thought highway, we teach our kiddos that there are plenty of exits. With those exits are different thoughts, okay? If you don't want one thought, if you don't want to put that energy into one thought, even if you do put it into one thought, and that result is not something that you want, you can get right back onto that highway and get right back onto another exit and take a whole other thought. You're still going to get another feeling with another behavior, with another result. And it's okay. If that one doesn't work out, it's okay. You can get right back on the highway and go to another exit, to another thought. That's life. It happens. It's full of thoughts. It's full of different exits for you to take. But the courage is where, are you going to keep going onto the highway? Or are you going to stay off and stay in your feelings? Okay? We talk about acknowledging different thoughts, even when it's ones that we may not even want to acknowledge, okay? And we talk about ones that are a little uncomfortable to acknowledge, but they're there, and they're on the side of kind of like a conveyor belt. We kind of talk about the thought X's as a conveyor belt, okay? Because all these different thoughts in your mind, it's like a conveyor belt. You keep going, all these thoughts. And as many thoughts as are in your mind, imagine how many of those thoughts we just pick one of them to stress over. How much energy we put into that one thought just to stress over it every time. So if you took that same amount of energy to put it into a whole different thought as you did that one, what would be the difference? What would be the change? Good or bad, right? Having that same courage to even get right back on that highway and never stay lost. Keep going. There's different exits every time. I promise, every time you get on the highway, it will be an exit. It might not be close. It may be a little far, but it's a different exit. And it may not be easy to take. The roads may be a little snaky. It might be some hills up and down along the way. But it's going to be another sign that'll get you back to the highway if you get a little lost. So within the Thought Highway, we talk about how we use these lovely tools to discover our spark with the kiddos, and how we use the thought chain, the thought cycle, even the Thought Highway, on how we use these to help with our kiddos and as well as with ourselves. And Dev, you were also in our internship, so I kind of am gonna switch just a smidge a little bit, because you were introduced in our internship and as well as in our now being a facilitator with us. But how do you feel like this is kind of helping you, coming from an internship to now facilitator, to helping you reach this out to the kiddos?
So one of the last things we did in the internship was a project about basically just letting our spark flourish. Some kids, or some people in the internship, their spark was graffiti art. They made a beautiful mural and brought it in the next day. Like, this is my spark and this is what we made with it. Other people in the internship, they made amazing poems, bodies of work, like poetry. I think one person made a song.
Songs, spoken words. We had a lot of different ways.
Amazing art pieces.
Yeah, 100%.
So everybody had a different project though. And this is basically how we tie it into the spark with the kiddos now in the schools, is because as I mentioned earlier, like, you don't have to voice your frustration through actions. You don't have to knuckle up every time you're mad. You can stick to something wherever your spark leads you to, which might be music, which might be art. Some people, it's teaching. Some people, it's just being able to help others one way or another, whether it's hand out canned food to the homeless, or just going into a classroom and speaking and trying to help them figure out themselves. Everybody's spark is different though. And that's what we try to teach. Take these emotions, these strong emotions that you have at this point of your life, and put it to good use. Put it to a way to change the world. Put it to a way to maybe help somebody else. Help somebody else find their spark. Help somebody else see your spark and see the work that you do with it. For me, I like doing photo, I like doing video, you know, so that's my spark. When I'm not at work, I'm doing music videos. That's my spark. I know Logan here.
Yeah, we definitely are. We're everywhere. Yeah. I'm definitely in photography as well, and I definitely just think that we also talk about with the kiddos how your spark shows up differently for everybody. Yeah. Everybody in the world has a spark. That's a given. That's a shared known fact. But how it shows up for you, how it shows up for everybody is completely different. And how one shows up for me versus how yours may show up for you is completely different. And when I see that with you, I may recognize that completely different than what it may be for me. And getting others to understand that. And I feel like once they understand that alone about a spark, imagine what you could understand about this world as a whole, as an individual, with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your ideas, with your emotions, with your actions, with your behaviors. Like, if you just knew you held that simple power to be able to create this safe space within your own mind instead of in your physical environment or circumstance.
Like I've seen it first and foremost, like, we went into some of the schools this week, and at the first school, I was talking with the kid, and like a kid nearby. We were working on this poster project, and they were like, "Oh, I love doing art. I love coloring." I'm like, "Oh, really? Like, keep that, because we're gonna talk about that spark." Like, But and then the second school we went into, I got a chance to talk to one of them and one of the kids at a certain table, and he was like, "Yeah, like I love video games. My favorite video games are Minecraft and Fortnite. I want to be a YouTuber." And I was like, okay. So it's very interesting seeing, because they're not hiding these sparks. These sparks are always within everybody. It's only just waiting to be uncovered. It's only waiting to shine. So like these kids, their spark is at a point where it's shining so bright. It's just waiting for somebody to see it. It's just waiting for, you know, somebody in the world, somebody around them to see it and help them, you know, put that spark on a pedestal almost.
Yeah. Yeah, and like hold that power and channel that, like kind of like Melina said earlier, just being able to channel all that energy. We have all these kiddos, we meet so many kiddos and their energy is on 10. And sometimes it gets focused in the wrong way and it gets focused in a negative aspect. It does. And that's okay, because I don't think they know any better that they could be, if they put that same energy in a positive aspect, the amazing outcome that they would get, rather than ending up in detention or being in trouble because they put that in the wrong way. Like, my goodness. And just us being humans and being able to take that experience that we've withheld in our own journeys and being able to take that as well as this spark and teach us and give it to the kiddos and give that back to the kiddos. It's inspiring. It's life-changing. It's like one of one. I always say Rebels for Peace is one of one, but one of one, on the ground, being about it instead of just speaking about it, being a part of the solution. This is a part of the solution. This is the solution.
We are the solution.
We are literally the solution. Not being a product of where you come from, but creating the environment you want for you, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the environment. So before we open up for questions, before we open up for comments, we just want to say thank you for everybody for your support. For us to be able to go into the schools to teach the kiddos, for the curriculum, the supplies, the love, all of it, beginning to end. We want to say thank you as the facilitators on the front line with the kiddos. They say thank you. We say thank you. And we just want to show and give so much love to you all, and hope that you enjoyed a little bit of our curriculum. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? Anything that sat with them? Anything at all?
Jesse says, I love the message of the spark and the message you want something different, you have to do something different.
Absolutely. Isn't that what being a rebel is? Like, come on. Like, we are literally a rebel. We are a rebel first for peace, but we are a rebel first.
Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thank you for everybody that have believed in Rebels for Peace, from 100 students, from 200 students, to all the way from one school to 2 schools, to now us being able to provide services in 6 different schools, us being able to now have 4 new facilitators, us transitioning from only providing male facilitators to now having women facilitators to be able to connect with the young ladies in the community, and making sure that everybody is able to be a part of Rebel for Peace is the only thing that is important to me. So that's where my spirit is. Like, my spirit is healing. My spirit is hurting for the community, for the children that are unable to be a part of this wonderful experience. But everything that I've done in the last 7 years was for the community, rebelling against the norm, rebelling against violence, rebelling against everything that I have to rebel against on a day-to-day. I still live in a neighborhood that I'm serving, so I'm constantly faced with trials and tribulations every single day that I wake up, that I choose to rebel against, so that I can be the change that I want to see for the community. So, that's not gonna stop, and that's just what have been motivating me to continue to push forward, to continue to fight and use my voice for the students in the community, to make sure that everyone knows that they need this, everyone knows that they're requesting this, the school's requesting this, everybody are asking, where's Rebel for Peace? We need the opportunity to have support so that we can get back to our students, so that we can get back to making sure that our community is safe, because we know what we need. We from the community, we've been through different struggles and violence and experiences that have positioned us to know what our students need. So we just need support from the world to allow us to be the change that we want to see for our students, so that they could see someone that resembles them and that understands them doing something positive, so that they could have that safe space that's created and tailor-made for them to grow, to learn, to connect with each other, and to have that going on over and over again, to where we're just pouring into them and creating a space for them to see the importance of their well-being, for them to see the importance of how their actions affect their future, and just reminding them that and allowing somebody to be there for them. You know, we waking up intentionally in mind thinking about our students. Support us in that. Help us help the community, so that we can continue to make this change, so that we can continue to make impact, and so that our youth can have a chance at being the best version of themselves. So I just had to get that off my chest. I'm Rebels for Peace. Y'all know I'm Rebels for Peace. So it's like, for me, I don't know how to feel with telling a student that, I can't be there for them, or certain set facilitators can't have that class right now due to funding. So I just want that to change. I want everybody to understand how passionate we all are. The team waking up, training, going through different experiences, traveling, going outside of their self and outside of their house, outside of the things that's normal for them, so that they could become a better version of themselves for the community, for the youth. Like, everybody is waking up thinking about someone else on our team, and we just need the support from the world and from everyone to see the value in these students, the value in underserved neighborhoods, and how a simple donation, a simple sponsoring of one student could change the trajectory of their future.